Draft opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one, and at some point in time, all of them can certainly smell like shit. It's the nature of the beast. But it is a lot of fun after the draft, even just after day one of the draft. We start talking about who got picks right, who got picks wrong. We think we know. The reality is at this point, we don't fucking know. We're not going to know for 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 years. It's the nature of the beast. But it doesn't mean it's not fun to step out on the ledge and have those hot takes. That could be freezing cold takes in a couple of years. Or be flaming hot fire, man, Days was right takes. Yeah. Fuck waiting for shit to play out. Let's get on record now. Hindsight 2020 vision my ass. So I'm here to talk about day one of the 2021 NFL draft. Your biggest winners and losers and some question marks too. I'm going to start off with the winners. I love what the New York Jets did. They moved on from Sam Darnold, got some draft pick capital in return for him, took, in my estimation, QB1 in this draft and Zach Wilson at 2, then moved up from 23 to 14 to take Elijah Vera Tucker, the offensive lineman from USC. You draft the quarterback with the elite tools, then you move up to get somebody to protect him. It's a novel concept. Now build the rest of that damn offense up around him. Now you could say you're trading up for potentially an interior lineman in the top 15. Seems kind of questionable. And it could be. Maybe. But if that's the guy that they really wanted, then they had enough draft pick capital where they could afford to get a little aggressive with the 2 first-round picks. So I really don't have a problem with it. For the New York Giants, I like how they played this. You had the 3 wide receivers, Chase go 5, Waddle go 6, and the Eagles jumped them from 12 to 10 with the Cowboys, which was an interesting deal in and of itself, to go ahead and get Devontae Smith, which left the Giants there at 11. They want a playmaker on offense. There's nobody that's worth taking at pick 11. They're able to peel back to 20, take Kadarius Toney, even though I don't think he was the best receiver on the board. I get why they might have been intrigued by him. But more importantly than that is the fact that they were able to get a 1st and 4th round pick in next year's draft, which you go into this year, Danny Dimes, if you find out once and for all that he's truly trash bag, then you've got more draft pick ammunition next year if you need to go up and get a quarterback. They positioned themselves well, understood how to play the draft game. I frankly am stunned that it was a team with Dave Gettleman as a general manager that did this. It's stunning, shocking actually. The Los Angeles Chargers, it's not always about moving around and getting a bunch of picks or making big trades up the board. Sometimes good teams just let it ride. Play the game, see how the board plays out, and go with whatever hand you're dealt. And the Chargers did that. Just like a couple of years ago when they had Derwin James fall to him at 17, this time they had Rashawn Slater end up there at pick 13 for him, and now you're taking a lineman that's going to be protecting Justin Herbert for the next 10 to 12 years. And at a high level, mind you, whether you play him at left tackle or you play him at guard, doesn't even really matter. Probably left tackle, you would think. But Herbert's your dude. You want to contend, you want to compete against the Chiefs in that division, you have to beef up that offense around Justin Herbert. And to be able to just sit there and be comfortable. I would have actually advocated for the Chargers to get a little more aggressive, trade back up into the bottom end of round 1 and either double dip for another offensive lineman or maybe go after a corner. They didn't do that like they did last year with Herbert and then coming up and getting Kenneth Murray. That worked out really well for him. I would have advocated for them to do it again this year. Nonetheless, getting Slater at 13 feels like a pretty big win. And I look at the Vikings. The fact that you could have had a lot of mock drafts saying that the Vikings were going to take Christian Darrisaw, the offensive tackle from Virginia Tech, at 14. And they were able to peel back, get additional draft pick capital, and get their guy at 23. Like, you have to respect the understanding of how to play the draft game. That's what it's about here. Understanding the game you're playing, understanding the situation, understanding the lay of the land, bumping back, and saying, fuck it, we'll see what happens. And it paid off for them very nicely. They needed a left tackle. They've now got a left tackle. And to get him at 23 instead of 14 and pick up additional picks to do so, that was really damn good work by the Minnesota Vikings. But you had some losers in this draft, in my opinion. I look at the Detroit Lions. Like, they showed the draft room and how excited they were for taking Penei Sewell. Like, 1, is Sewell even the top tackle in this draft class? Time will tell. 2, if, and this is if, so it's subjective, if somebody like New Orleans or one of these other teams was willing to come up and give you a decent package to move out of that 7th pick so that team could take a quarterback, you already have a bunch of draft pick capital the next 2 drafts. You probably should have taken that offer, understanding, again, the game that you're playing and understanding the lay of the land, that the offensive line class was very deep, especially in the first 2 rounds. Look at all the guys that are left over on day 2. Like, if you're a team that needs offensive line help on day 2, you're a big winner here because there's still tons of guys that were borderline or definitely round 1 talents that still happen to be there. The Lions, to me, I could also say, are you going to regret passing on Justin Fields and Mac Jones because you had a hard-on for Jared Goff? To me, it was an indication of not understanding the draft game. Just my opinion. It may work out for him very well. I presume Sewell will have a very nice long-term NFL career. But will you look back in 5 years and say, goddamn, like a Justin Fields or a Mac Jones, really wish he would have been there in Detroit? You know what I mean? The Carolina Panthers. Here's my problem with this. You were in a position where you had the excuse to trade down. You didn't get it done. Furthermore, after 2020, where you drafted nothing but defensive players, you turn around, you bring in Sam Darnold via trade. So you're saying, okay, we're going to hitch our wagon to him for at least 1 year. If we pick up his 5th-year option, maybe 2. Wouldn't you want to build up the fucking offense around him? Especially considering you just lost Curtis Samuel in free agency. Instead, you draft a corner. This is not about J.C. Horn, the prospect, which I hope to God someday we see him break out his daddy's cell phone, his end zone celebration. But understand, the name of the game in the NFL today is offense. If you're Matt Rule, you've got a freaking 6 more years left on your contract, I think it is. You have the ability to take your time and be patient and build things up the right way. You don't do that from drafting nothing but freaking defense. That's stupid, period. You had offensive linemen worthy of this selection. You could have argued you had one wide receiver potentially worthy of this selection. You had quarterbacks on the board, at least one that somebody was willing to trade up to get. Like, it made sense to move down your asking price just a little bit in order to make that happen. I don't agree with that. Same thing with the Denver Broncos. Like, will they regret passing on one of these quarterbacks? Perhaps. Will they regret not taking an offensive player here? Perhaps. Again, this is not a reflection so much on Surtain, the corner, the prospect. This is more about the draft philosophy and approach. I can at least say Denver's trying to have an identity. They want to win with defense. However, when you were in a division with the Chiefs and the freaking Chargers, it seems like a dumbass way to build your team. It's my opinion. Again, another team with the trade for Teddy Bridgewater, you got him and Drew Lock in that quarterback room. You could have, if you weren't going to take quarterback, try and trade down. Again, seeing Chicago come up from 20 to 11, clearly they would have come up to 9 if the opportunity would have presented itself. You didn't present it, or you didn't present it well enough. Again, that's not understanding the draft game. And then I look at the Las Vegas Raiders. You talk about a team with no identity. You talk about a team that you don't know what the fuck they're about. You talk about a team that, as we eventually hopefully get fans back in the stands, Vegas isn't going to give a shit about that team. You're selling the new stadium, not the players, not the team itself. You need to give them box office. You need to give them reasons. Or you need to get the best available players, if nothing else. And they did none of that here. I like Alex Leatherwood. I think he's a little underrated by some folks as a prospect. I do think he could play left tackle or right tackle or flip inside the guard. And if we're going to be clear here, in today's NFL, the whole left tackle versus right tackle notion is pretty riri, if you get my drift. It's stupid. How many teams now line up their best edge rushers, their best pass rushers on the left side of the defense, which means they're coming off of the right tackle. It doesn't matter what your fucking blindside protector does if this right tackle's a freaking sieve. It's damn near equivalent at this point in time, no matter what anybody says. So I get the selection and thinking long-term, like you're going to pair him with Colton Miller on that offensive line, bring him in and get him coached up by Tom Cable. I get all of that. But there were better players, better prospects, arguably better offensive linemen on the board. Again, it's like Mike Mayock and Gruden don't know what the fuck they're doing. You know, you might look at Leatherwood and think he's a tremendous high-character guy. That's great. But you don't need a team of 53 choir boys to win a fucking Super Bowl. The hell are you doing? You need game breakers. You need difference makers. You could have certainly used some damn speed in your linebacking core. At this point, with what you ended up doing, why didn't you try to trade up with the Giants at 11 and draft frickin' Fields or Jones? Because you still haven't done this thing right the whole damn time. You still haven't. Until you move on from Derek Carr, you never truly have rebuilt. You're just perpetuating the stupidity of the past, period. So I did not like what they did either. But I think you've got a few teams we've got to talk about as question marks. One, the San Francisco 49ers. That was a big price to pay to move up to get a guy who wasn't the last quarterback that was worthy of a first-round pick. Now, I love the move. I love the prospect. I love the fit here. And I think in terms of pure physical upside and talent, Trey Lance has the most of it in this draft class. It may take some time to see it, but he's got Josh Allen level abilities, which means he could potentially be a future league MVP type of candidate. That said, they gave up a lot to get him. Find out in a few years if it was the right move or not. It's risky. Sometimes you got to risk it for the biscuit, go big or go home. But again, as much as my Bears get crap for taking Trubisky, let's always remember that the 49ers traded back from 2 to 3 in that 2017 draft and still could have taken either Mahomes or Watson, passed on both of them. Right? They did pass on both of them. They deserve some shit too. They better hope this Trey Lance thing works out. The Miami Dolphins, you're going to say, what the hell are you questioning about them? They took Jalen Waddle. They took Jalen Phillips. They got some speed on both sides of the ball. You know, they played this pretty well. Fundamentally, I agree with the two picks. Like, I don't think they played that poorly at all. This is more about this. It was dumb enough when they passed on Herbert last year for Tua. But now, not only that, you come into this draft, you had the third pick. You could have taken one of these other quarterbacks in Trey Lance or Justin Fields or Mac Jones. If any of those three guys end up being a better pro quarterback than Tua, then everybody involved with the Dolphins should be fired. Because if you had taken Herbert last year, you're talking about the Dolphins in this draft position with commodity, the draft pick capital they had. You're talking about them potentially being a contender, not just in the East facing off with the Bills, but like a contender, period. With Tua, you got all types of damn questions. That doesn't mean that he can't develop or become a dude or become that dude. But they better hope to God he fucking does. Because if not, I guarantee, Dolphins fans will look back in 3 years and say, what the hell, we wasted all of our time. You had a chance to do something, and because we screwed up on the quarterback, it was all fucked up. And then, of course, it comes down to my Chicago Bears. It is a question mark. It's a risk to move up from 20 to 11 and do what Panicky Pace typically will do, which is overpay to move up 9 spots in the first round. That's a typical Ryan Pace thing. You know, it's also an indication to me that he didn't have a plan going into this draft of drafting a quarterback. It just evolved and became a thing. That's why he cut Kyle Fuller and then basically traded, you think about it, he traded Kyle Fuller to pay Andy Dalton. Like, that's dumb dick stuff right there. You can't spin that any other positive way. And then you turn around and give up a first and fourth round pick next year for a team that hasn't had a first round pick the last 2 years to get a guy that fell to 11. And either teams passed on him because they knew something and the Bears are too dumb to see it, or the Bears are just incredibly lucky that other teams in front of them are frickin' idiots, and part of the reason they were drafting where they were was because they were idiots. It could be a combination of both, could be one or the other. But it all comes down to now you bring in Fields, like, is this the right environment, the right situation? How are the Bears going to build around him? This is not the answer. Justin Fields does not make them a championship team. They must go all in, and I want to repeat this for the Bears fans that are dense. They must go all in on that offense. So you got to follow that up on day 2 with 2 more offensive players. You got to sit there and shift the entire focus of the organization to offense first. It is about this young man now. It is about doing everything you can to put Justin Fields in the best possible position. Fuck a third corner, fuck a third edge rusher, fuck a safety, fuck all these other defensive players. Offense, 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 period. Go big or go home on the side of the ball that now matters the most. If the Bears do that, they could come out of this 3 or 4 years down the road and we're looking back at how this was truly a franchise-defining, franchise-changing moment for the better. And if they don't, the Bears will be right back in this same fucking position in 3 or 4 years again because Fields will bust out and they'll be looking for their next guy that they got to panic to move up to get.